Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Leo. It is technically before lunch, so we can still say good morning.
Is that fair? It's morning somewhere, isn't it? It's morning in America.
At least in Spain, we say midday for us is 2 p.m. because that's when we have lunch.
Okay.
So it's before 2 p.m.
I'm happy to go Spanish on it. This is quite a significant moment.
It is.
The first time we've ever done this in the flesh, right?
First time we've ever done this in the flesh, and people will not believe, only the second time, well, I guess technically last night at the Shorties Awards, but second time that we've seen each other in person.
Brilliant.
It's insane.
Yeah, I love it. We're having a blast. We normally ask what you've been up to, but I know what you've been up to because I've been partying with you. Like I know exactly where you've been. But hold on, let's do it properly. So you came over, you flew in, you had a nap, and then you hit the Shorties hard, right?
I did, yeah. We got in just in time for a nap, a shower, and changing for the Shorties, which was amazing. I was very good last night because we have been emceeing the Short Stay Summit, and so we have needed to be on point today. So I was very good.
We were well behaved, weren't we?
In bed by 11.
Very good.
I think I only had like 2 glasses of wine in the whole evening, so I was very proud of myself. It was a fabulous event.
Yeah, it was really good. It's good fun. And congratulations to DNA, who won the award for, tell me, what was it?
Yeah, we won for the Best Use of Social Media Award for a story that we did on the solar eclipse in the US. Earlier last year, and also that was retweeted by Brian Chesky. So pretty impressive stuff.
Nice.
Big shout out to the team, especially to Jamie Lane, our chief economist, and the rest of his team, as well as our PR team that worked tirelessly on that campaign. So it was a really nice win. He was super chuffed when we sent him the photo. Yeah,
I bet it was. Oh, look, there's great energy in the room today. We're having a great time. So we've been emceeing the show all day, learning a lot. There's been a ton of interesting topics. What I would say to start with, look, last night the Shorties, it's the usual faces, right? It's the industry, it's the industry people that we all know and love and we've hung out with for a number of years. Today, though, at the Short Stay Summit, we've got well over 1,400 people walking around. That's not including exhibitors. And what I'm loving is you speak to people maybe you spoke to last year who used to have 10 properties. Now they've got 30. Or you speak to people that, like, I just spoke to a chap in the Cotswolds who, when I first started chatting to him and we did some business together a long time ago, he had 50, he now has 250 and a successful lettings business alongside it.
Yeah.
It's great to see. And it's not all about numbers when it's all about scale. There's the hospitable host crew walking around with maybe just a handful or 2 or 3 properties each, but putting their love into it. It's amazing to see the energy in this room and everyone walking around trying to learn. It's fantastic.
I would totally agree. I ran into, she's like one of my best conference friends, and we've never done business together. There's no need for us to do business together. We're the classic bathroom friends that you meet chatting in the loo. At a conference. We met at VRWS years ago. And absolutely right. When Robin Bass and I met, she had 10 properties in the Virgin Islands. And I chatted with her last night and she was like, I've got 40 properties. They're all amazing. And I have such an incredible team that I've been able to split my time now between the Virgin Islands and New Hampshire, where she's from. And she was really excited. She'd been in the Virgin Islands for years and she knows the area so well that now she's able to trust her team that she's built there and spend more time with her family that's back in New Hampshire. So it's for me, that's the best bit of these things, getting to know people, knowing their stories, what's going on in their lives, and seeing them grow and seeing the joy. We can't forget, right? We can't forget that as vendors in the space, what we're trying to do is create situations that make it easier for people to scale and grow their businesses. And that might be scale and grow, but that also might be just work less so they can spend more time with family. Like for some people, this is a lifestyle business. It is, yeah.
And how phenomenal as vendors, we have to keep remembering that actually you get that customer who's saying, look, reduce the admin hours for me on a weekly basis. And you'll see those stories if you walk around, people using AI to answer comms, who were using their PMS on their phone while they're sat on the beach, on holiday. It's the story, I think, the continuous story you would get 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, perhaps at these conferences is, I'm slammed. I can't take a day off.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing more and more increasingly is I have the bandwidth to A, think about scaling, or B, spend more time at leisure. And the whole industry where there wasn't a barrier to access before, there's even less of a barrier to access now.
Yeah.
So, people that maybe 5 years ago would have given their property to a property manager, hey, they decided to do a little hosting side hustle themselves, and they've become the host, right? They become the property manager.
That's a good point. It's really interesting. I was chatting with Carlos from the V2 Summit last night, and he said, this industry, you guys have gone really quiet. And I think it's exactly that. I think we're getting to a point in the industry where that professionalization really has taken over to the point where people can take a holiday, people can step away. But obviously, there's ambition and there's a want for growth, but there's much more focus on quality rather than just growing the portfolio at any cost. And that's really neat. So let's talk about some of the sessions today, Leo.
Oh, wait, I'm well up for it. Let me just do one more thing before we get into the show chat, because you reminded me of something. So one thing I want us to really focus on and be thinking about this is how people can leverage technology, leverage the services that they see in this vendor hall today, but also how people are marrying that up with really good local service. We talk about hyperlocal.
Yeah, we do. We love hyperlocal.
The best use of technology doesn't diminish the idea that the service and the hospitality at the core of what you're doing. So there's some of the conversations I'm having with people is, look, I'm using AI, I'm using a PMS, I'm using this for keyless entry, I'm using this for screening and protection. But what I know I can do is when it escalates to the point of needing a human being to come and speak to the guest, I'm on site and I can go and I can delight my guest. But you know what? I'm freeing myself up because I'm using so much tech that I can also just drive around to all my properties on check-in day and just say hi to everybody.
Yeah.
And isn't that amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't forget that we are in lockstep, in competition, in battle, however you want to see it, with other lodging types.
Yeah.
Be it hotels, be it RVs, be it glamping sites. And the ones that win the race, I still fundamentally believe, are the ones that manage to personalize the service. And that's the direction we want to see this industry go, right? It's leveraging technology to make sure that you can do the handwritten notes. Last night,
Also, absolutely.
Rose Tipka last night, shout out to Rose, who's telling us about the great things she does.
So lovely. So lovely. Yeah, and I think that really is the thing that separates our industry apart from sort of the traditional hospitality hotel sector is the ability to give that personal touch. So we've talked about this, I think, before on the pod, but we'll give Rose a shout out. Basically, what she does is she sends a postcard to the guest on the first day of their stay. So that by the time that they get home, they have this wonderful memory postcard of their stay. It's so unique. It's inexpensive. It makes a huge impact.
Yes.
And when I was speaking to her last night, I think the thing that was the most evident for me was just her passion for what she does and for her guests. And that's what it's all about. We've talked to so many people today, and I think that is a running theme for me, is the passion for what they do, the people that they work with, their owners, and the guests, ultimately.
Yeah, and it's like, if you think about just numbers and revenue lines and growth in from a balance sheet perspective, that's going to be really obvious to a guest. And if you think about it, but if you come from the position that you're a hospitality business and you have to get all those things right as well, but you're a hospitality business, and when you try and get someone in your property, as unlikely as it may seem the first time you think like this, your sole purpose is to try and get that person to come back to you directly
100%.
the next time, then that's the way to think about the experience you're trying to offer. And what I'm enjoying about today is there's lots of talks around that topic, people trying to do better, create better, more memorable moments for their guests. So it's great.
Yeah.
What have you enjoyed about the main stage?
I think for me, several things, but I'll start with one, which is my excitement around the fact that in our opening session, we were able to get an MP here, who was not only an MP here, but finally have somebody on stage from the government who was excited about what we do and who is complimentary, who saw what we're about. And that to me is so special. I think it's often really easy to get caught up in all the negatives, the regulation, the demonization of short-term accommodations. And it's nice to see somebody step back and think, no, my constituency benefits from tourism. And so we need to find a way that's sustainable. And great shout out to Andy and the rest of his team for all of the amazing work that they're doing here in the UK in terms of lobbying. I hate that word because to me, it normally goes associated with corruption, right? You normally think about big companies, but in this case, for me, it's for good, and it's for every single person that is in this room today. So that was really exciting just to see right off the bat.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll go into that point. And I want to hear your others, but there is tireless policy work going on at the UK level.
Yeah.
Like, we're engaging with policymakers. Then the government changes, then a new crop come in, and you start again. The new crop that have come in with energy and excitement. So it's a really good time to be engaging with politicians at the moment. And you see that, it's not people. These MPs, as politicians, for people who don't know what the MP word means outside of the UK, so like senators, it's congressmen, whatever the comparison is, they haven't done 10 years of these shows. They're on their first year.
Oh, yeah.
It's the first cycle of it. So if you get them in now and say, look at who we're representing. There's cleaners, there's contractors, there's maintenance people, there's property people, there's check-in people. Like, there's jobs up and down this country reliant on this. And what was great about Chris, and then later Babe, but we'll focus on Chris because he was specifically talking about that, is he's got a tourism background. He gets the idea that one of the key components of growth in your economy is to bring a guest in and get them spending money. It was when I was at One Fine Stay, I was so proud of it, how many Americans we brought in to spend their dollars in London. No, we built that. We built that by making these properties right for them. And it goes back to our point, which is like, we have to remember that at the start of that buying journey is often someone looking at a property, not looking at Blackpool, which is Chris's constituency, or Southend, that's Bayer's constituency. They're looking at a property, and if the properties are there and they're well maintained and we're encouraging our industry to go, you're going to get people to come out of the bigger cities for the weekend, Manchester, Liverpool, London, and say, let's spend some money in these beautiful places. And again, even why not attract international visitors? Let's bring dollars into the country. We've got all be fixated on that.
And this has knock-on effects as well. One of the things that Chris mentioned was, if we all of a sudden have an influx of tourism because people want to come to Blackpool, for example, if that's too many people, the industry collapses. There's not the infrastructure there. And so that can actually be a great catalyst for investment, for additional infrastructure to be built, and for that to become a prioritization. Because whether we like it or not, money is a driving factor, especially for many governments, for where they're going to put those pounds and those dollars or euros into the local economy. And so it has wonderful knock-on effects, which was interesting to hear as well.
It's the old saying that build it and they will come. Paris and London are 2.5 hours apart by train, right? You can go a further 2 hours by train from London if you connect those services properly, and you're in the northwest at some beautiful beaches. An hour south, you're in Brighton, my hometown now. We can be bringing people from outside the UK up here, make it easy for them to get here. I agree. I really enjoyed that. And I think, again, shout out to Andy, CEO, Shomik, head of policy at Inline, who worked with Star for building these deep relationships. What else caught your eye?
I think one of the other sessions I really enjoyed, mostly because it was an unknown market for me. There was a session today about specifically Chinese travelers and the influx of Chinese travelers and how to capture that demand coming in particular to the UK. So many interesting takeaways there. I think one was just the total mentality difference. And so I think it's so important when we're looking at who's coming, who's visiting our properties, what is it that we need to know about them in order for them to have a really great experience? So one of the things that came up was food. One of the panelists, Bo, from Trip.com, he says, Chinese people eat really healthy. And in most places, especially in the UK, it's not like that. And so Chinese people, when they come here, they oftentimes want really good Chinese food because they know that it's going to be full of vegetables. They know it's going to be healthy. They know it's not going to upset their stomach. And it's going to be something that they're going to enjoy, that's going to nourish them. And it was something I'd never really thought about before because, I don't know, for me, when I travel, I guess I'm lucky in living in Spain that the food is magnificent. I do notice that when I travel other places, but I'm very clear that I'm not traveling for their food. I'm traveling for other things. But it's something I wouldn't have thought about. And so one of his suggestions was, hey, if what they recommend to their property managers that are trying to attract Chinese tourists is, hey, scope out your local area. Try every Chinese restaurant within a 15 to 20 minute walk away and find the best ones that are good, authentic cuisine.
Yeah, I love that.
And have like a repository of those restaurants. Maybe even have some kind of deal with the owner of like, hey, I have this property or these several properties that are within this radius of you. If I send them in with this code, can they have a 5% discount? Or will you give them a free drink or something like that? That is beneficial for the owner of the restaurant or the establishment, but also helping the guests and making them feel more at home. So that was a really neat takeaway from that one.
I like that. You can take that conversation in many different directions, but it goes back to understanding who your guest is, right? And I think people are getting better at that. As an industry, we're thinking about that more. So you're right. there's a billion people, over a billion people that live in China. There's over a billion people that live in India, and they both have fantastic food cultures. And like, luckily, we're sat in the city of London, and there is tons of amazing Chinese and Indian restaurants. So you absolutely should be pointing to that in your digital guidebooks.
Yes.
And again, specifically if you're working with a company and you know you're going to get tourists from a specific part of the world, go that extra mile. You know, I'm not saying handheld concierge every single time, but, you know, go the extra mile to do more than put it in your digital guidebook, and make sure that you've tried the restaurants and you have worked on a deal. Again, if you're pitching at everyone as a host, it's really hard to hone in on why people might be coming. So I guess it's like, first of all, like, you know, we're looking to identify whether your properties are appealing for tourists and the reasons they're coming in. But if you get that right, absolutely point it in that direction, and assume it's someone's first. Assume if they're coming from India or China that they've got money in their pocket that they want to spend in Europe, which is we know that they're coming for those experiences of going to old Europe, and they're probably first-time visitors. So take nothing for granted about things that we think are normal in Europe. They're probably first-time visitors.
Yeah, I think the other takeaway there was about marketing and sort of when and how to go about that. So again, goes back to understanding the culture. For example, in China, people with children would never dream of, which is really normal in the UK or in the US or elsewhere, oh, we'll take the kids out of school for a few days because it's slightly cheaper and we'll grab some either end. Chinese tourists would never do this. And so if you're trying to attract families, you need to know when schools are in session and when schools are not in session, because that's when those travelers are going to come. So if you're launching some kind of marketing campaign or running a special or running anything around that, that's something you need to keep in mind. The other interesting tidbit from this for me was Chinese travelers are less likely to cancel. And the reason for that, which I thought would be that they book so far in advance because they're coming from so far away, it was the total opposite. It's Chinese travelers normally have a harder time getting off work. So the culture is very much about working longer hours, being very dedicated to the job. And so oftentimes they get vacation approved last minute. And so they book much more last minute than many people think. So again, if you're running a discount, if you're trying to fill a certain weekend, don't despair if you're trying to attract those Chinese tourists, because they just haven't even looked at booking yet. But for our industry, it's actually great, because I would think that would be a fear of a property owner or manager anywhere in Europe thinking, oh goodness, I have these travelers. If they're coming from way far away, maybe if anything happens, their chance of cancellation might be higher. Or, okay, I have this really short booking window. That means they're going to cancel sooner. And actually, for Chinese travelers, it's the opposite. So,
and I would suggest that if they're traveling out of China, they're probably fairly well heeled. I don't think discounting is necessarily something you need to do, right? It's just, it's making sure you're making it as easy as possible for them to come and stay once they're here, so that they, when they only get a short amount of time off of work, they can capitalize. Very interesting. I've enjoyed those talks as well. I think the one that stood out for me as well was a talk on communities that was led that featured Airbnb as well, and how we need to engage with our local communities. We see a lot of that from Airbnb. Like that's a constant theme of late, which I'm absolutely delighted that that's the case. I hope that going into this year, we do see more of that. We're thinking about the impact on communities, how we can put ourselves at the forefront of it to make sure that we show as an industry that we are a benefit to different parts of the world. I don't want us to spend the whole summer talking about bans and regulations.
Same.
You know, when we have an opportunity to talk about the good that we can do in our area. So I guess that's where my cup feels full at the moment, in a good way, is I feel we're having the right conversations in the industry. And to go full circle on what we talked about, instead of trying to put ourselves at odds with policymakers, we're inviting policymakers in the room to have conversations with us.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. I mean, you, my friend, you're on fire. You're loving it, aren't you?
I am in my element. This is one of my favorite things to do. I love chatting with people. I love getting to speak to different types of people, sit in on the sessions, ask the questions, point out people in the audience that you think you've seen them taking notes, and even if they don't raise their hand, you know they've got a question. And I think for me, one of the potentially most impactful sessions, I guess, today was the one that we had right before lunch, which was actually the Short Stay Summit's charitable partner. And they specialize in helping former service members and former blue light members. So for those of us, when I first heard this, I had no idea what it meant. Basically, it's former policemen, ambulance workers, anything that has a blue light, right? Which now makes sense. So helping both them as well as their families get job placement after their service or when they decide to end their service or look for something new. And what was really interesting about this to me is that oftentimes, because of the background, they're pushed into industry or engineering or these typical things that you would think of. Whereas really, when some of the characteristics were described for, okay, what defines a service member, or a blue light member to you, or someone who previously has been serving in these areas, and it was reliability, it was teamwork, it was resilience. All of these things, to me, it's exactly what we need in our industry. And right after the session, very interestingly, one of the audience members was coming up and chatting with some of the members of the panel and saying, yes, I would love somebody who's reliable and dependable, like all of these characteristics. That's who I need, because, was mentioning that she several times hired someone and within 2 weeks, they just wouldn't turn up to work. And
totally. Yeah. I think that's really true, isn't it? Your impression of what an ex-military person would be like I'm it's just as guilty of it. I'm always thinking about it as a man, when oftentimes it's a woman as well. And I'm thinking of it, very stereotypical of being like just a guy that you can imagine doing maintenance around the properties. But it's way more than that. And I agree with you. It's this idea of like service, teamwork, like working very clearly to goals and targets and timelines. 100%. I thought that was fantastic too. We need to push that more within our industry.
Yes.
Again, huge opportunity, I would imagine, as well in the US, given how big the military is in the US. So you guys are probably further ahead than we are in Europe on this. But yeah, I agree. I found that super interesting as well. I have experience of this with when I was at One Fine Stay. We had a similar program that brought in, I think it was just ex-military.
Okay.
And you could always, I think maybe even Bay said that, that's the politician says, you can always tell when someone's maybe had that training and that discipline. But it was 100% true, like vigilant, never late for work, like all over their brief, like very, very logical, like maybe had a logistics background mindset. So yeah, I first-hand experience of that One Fine Stay. I think it was a real success. Sarah, what are we doing? I mean, look, we're having time. We've got a whole afternoon of sessions. It's all go over here. What are we doing later? We must be partying somewhere.
We need to.
Right?
I'm telling you, we've got 5 more sessions after lunch. So a coffee is in order. And at 5:10, the summit closes, and that is going to be the best tasting drink I think I've ever had, and well deserved. So it's going to be great. I think that's the moment that we're going to be able to relax, mingle with people,
and fall asleep.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I would love to say we're going to go out partying and be on to 2 in the morning, but I think we will be in bed by 10,
probably
last
fall
night.
asleep. Probably fall asleep. Yeah.
Fall asleep.
Well, so you at home, I hope you've enjoyed us coming live from the Short Stay Summit. As you know, we're obviously pre-recorded because it was last week, so you'll be seeing this on the Tuesday. We'll be back the following week in our usual slot, back in our office bedrooms. Our bedroom offices, speaking to each other online. But for now, it's been great to see you all, and we'll see you next week.